All right, we got battery, we got relatively good focus, and I found a bunch of good pecans in the bed of my truck while I was cleaning it out. And I realized that it's been a pretty long time since I got into my notes, and they sure can accumulate. I'm behind a church that doesn't have any congregation any longer. A sign says that I might get towed, but I don't understand how any building that used to be a church would consider it an unauthorized activity to ponder creation on site. I don't belittle addiction in other people. No, sir. It's a thorn. Our thorns help us think about the choices our free will keeps making. And plus it slows me down. I talk fast. I wonder if my head's cut off. Could be. But anyways, that's a big brick stone church behind the camera. And behind me is an old, what we used to call an octopus water tower. I completed the first two parts, recovered and completed the first two parts of my water tower story. And I've been working up the next chapter in my head, which is going to talk about this character that just showed up in the last panel of part 2. Young fella's father is now calling him Strong Feather, but there was no discussion about the shift yet. And the two of them have gone off to explore more carefully and have a conversation about this strange place near where they live. And while they're heading up there, bright and early, they hear a limb crack and turn, and they see this massive golem, like, not Gollum from Tolkien, but like the Hebrew clay man, right, that was brought to life. There was an early German expressionist film called the Golem, Golem. Gimel, Aleph, Lamed, and the M, which is escaping me how it's pronounced in Hebrew, that particular letter. But anyways, this character says, "I am mud," and that's the last panel. And I like for things to have layers of depth. And the "I am mud" in this, something is telling me I should aim that camera just a wee bit lower. Yeah, that'll probably do it. When I was a kid and I was about to get my tail tore up for something, my dad he said this more than once because I deserved a whooping more than once, usually about different things at least. Part of the learning curve. At one point, Dad spared the rod, but he didn't spare the hand after that. Let's put it that way. In some ways, I suppose other people could look at me and say I was spoiled. But it wasn't with stuff or attention. It was with a sense of liberty that I probably wasn't equipped for yet. And I want for this mud character, this giant terracotta-looking, cypress tree-looking thing, to be profoundly benevolent. I want for it to be, my wife and I have our own little language that revolves around The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, because those archetypes are helpful. And I said, this mud, I want him to kind of be this vessel of real history and events that precedes many races that have disappeared. So he's like a mighty man of old in some respects, right? And he's sort of an elemental. He's sort of an earth elemental who's anthropomorphic, very large, and is going to have some abilities that would make sense for such a creature. And he's very humble. Just appearing, he breaks branches off of trees without intending to. So I want him to be, sort of in a Tolkien kind of way, to be sort of like Beorn and Tom Bombadil and an earth elemental all at the same time. That kind of deep knowledge, not information, but knowledge that spans ages. And he's seen a lot of long games begin and end. He's going to be able to sort of dissemble and go anywhere there's moisture. He's mud, so he's earth and water. And he's going to be able to be prevented from getting to places that are paved, which is another kind of earth, but it's man-made, and it provides a type of resistance between the individual and the earth below. So that's going to factor in later parts of the book at some point when he comes to the rescue or tries to. Man, there are more people working for themselves now than I remember in my whole life as private contractors. It seems to me that the loyalty that corporations used to mime for their employees, you know, giving you a watch or a nice bonus, or even in the case of my dad, who worked for a huge meat company, a pension. This used to happen. But that's gone. It's gone. My 27-year-old works 12-hour shifts like a champ and makes ends meet. My other kids work real hard and don't rely on or even beg for charity. I don't think they'll turn away a nice tray full of leftover lasagna on any given day, but they take care of their own needs. They're not parasitic. Each of them, like all of us, is carrying trauma into their adult life, which continues to need to be dealt with for all of our life until we are gone. Because you can't unsee and you can't unremember unless you sustain an injury that's going to take away more than bad memories. Oh my God, I've got so many things shoved in here. Huh. That Cream album, Disraeli Gears. Oh my God. Look up Disraeli and the year 1844 and be educated. I got that lovely Yoda quote, which George Lucas got from Seneca, okay? Seneca being a classical thinker. Do or do not. There is no try. It's a good quote. All right, those are old music notes. Let's remember the 5-point code of Hammurabi, which is also known as the curse of Ham, Hammurabi Ham. Remember that pork and pigs are the mammal most genetically similar to the human being, way up in the high 90% similarity. Something to think about. We've got CRISPR nowadays creating, manimals, and there's nothing new under the sun. The curse of Hammurabi. So, 5 points. Be tribal and try to be the chief of your tribe. Demand loyalty. Find people that covet as you do and steal together, including the lives and reputations of other people. Don't worry about fornication, lewdness, or adultery because it's fun. And finally, it's perfectly okay within this belief system to kidnap another person's stuff, be it tangible or non-fungible, and just leave nothing more than a little Kilroy was here behind so that they know it was intentional. Something to think about. I've got notes in here about how in Matthew, Jesus Christ sent a legion of spirits, okay? Legion, leagues, 20,000 leagues under the sea. It's deep. It's a lot. Maybe it has to do with legs. And he casts these spirits out of what they call a demoniac, which is a possessed person, a person who is evil and just can't help themselves. And I was thinking about, well, what was the state of these spirits when they were not in the crazy man and they were not yet in the pigs? I was thinking about that transfer. And I remember reading in scripture that haunted houses are to be expected because non-corporeal spirits seek companionship, right? A house gets exorcised of an evil spirit, and if it isn't kept clean, that spirit's going to come back with friends and wait. It's in there. It's crazy stuff, folks. My wife and I were talking about someone in the family who's their own worst enemy in some circumstances. The kind of person, now I know a lot of kids, it's a phase to go through when you're becoming independent to say, no, I can do it myself. And let's hope that everybody's children reach that point early and they succeed, right? This is how we build on our skill set. But as I get older and begin to age out in some ways, right? These two fingers, this thumb, this left knee, stuff like that. I have to accept help when I cannot help myself, right? So I do believe that people reach a point in their age where saying I can do everything without anyone's help can really lead to some catastrophe. Broken hips, things like that. And my wife and I were talking about people like that are defined by their silence more than by what they say or do. What defines them is what they will not talk about and get triggered by, and what they will not look at that is right there in the mirror. You know, we hear about selective listening, right? The husband that nods when his wife is talking, but he's really reading a magazine article. There are a lot of charades in this world, folks. All right, let me skip back here to some of these loose pages that I shoved on in there. Yes, our bodies are temples. We need to be very careful about what we put in there. And I think that cable television is a very, very bad thing to put inside there where your soul is. Very, very bad habit. You love those shows for a reason. You've been made to. It's something to think about. People with control issues hand their control away to addictive behaviors, as I've done in the past. Two quotes that rhyme. I love this. There's an old Arabic quote that's beautiful. It says, when a clown enters a palace, he does not become king. The kingdom becomes a clown show. And the one that rhymes with it is someone exclaiming in such a setting, this ain't my circus, and these ain't my monkeys. I love that. Oh, man. All right, let's see here. I'm all over the place today, guys. Has anyone ever noticed that humanity has a consensus that anyone on stilts is to be feared? When you can't make a name with yourself with words, buy some stilts. And I need to check out a couple of stringed instrument people from a long time ago, about 100 years ago. Joseph Kukulu, who pretty much co-invented Hawaiian music with slide guitar, with Makia Kealakai. And the popularity of the ukulele took off like a bottle rocket after these guys started recording way back in the 1920s. And it was this burst of enthusiasm for the ukulele. And remember, most of the classic British rock musicians started on a uke, okay? Maybe 30 years after this, not even 30 years, 20 years after this boom, there were a lot of ukes in pawn shops, trust me. And I also need to look up Perry Bechtel, who was a banjoist who became a guitarist during this boom, which will be interesting, because I believe that the dobro finds that beautiful sweet spot between a steel string guitar and a banjo. The dobro with the resonator, I think is, to most of us, inadvertently tapping into healing vibrations that are not obtainable as easily with other instruments. And I think I started this off talking about this dude named Mud, this earth elemental, who just on a really granular level is drawn toward things that radiate a divine purpose in his realm. Well, it's not his realm, it's where he lives. It's the realm of the creative above in my story. And I have a quote here that fits in real good, I think, between Mud, because he's going to use this expression at some point in the story's context. But this quote goes out to anybody who's hurt me or someone I love, or just kicked him to the curb for a while and avoided all of the difficult conversation in pursuit of their brand. Just remember that the axe forgets. The tree remembers. And now I'm thinking of Shel Silverstein's book about the giving tree. Don't we all know what's the right thing to do?